Today, we're going to learn some tips and tricks on how to play the Riverfolk Company, the otter faction in the game of Root. First off is the initial placement of your 4 soldiers that you start the game with. What I would recommend doing is lumping up, doing 2 and 2 in 2 different locations, and all of your otters have to be placed along the riverway. So go ahead and select locations where there are multiple build locations. So in this clearing right here, we have 3 possible locations to build. In the one sort of here on the left side of the screen, we have 2 different locations. You want to position yourself in clearings that are of a strategic advantage to your opponents. This is how you're going to sell them things and make it so they have to interact with you. If you pick locations where there's really not much going on, you could even pick some of the corner locations, it's not going to really force them to interact with you. They're not going to want to buy anything from you. They're not going to want to hire your mercenaries. They're not going to want to potentially use those riverboats. So the key at the beginning of the game is pick 2 locations with multiple build sites and go from there. The next part of the setup are your services, and I would recommend putting your services to a cost of 2 for a purchase of a card, 1 for the riverboats, it's not very popular, and then 2 for mercenaries. Just remember that in the future, to get a card, you're going to have to spend 1 of your soldiers from a fund and commit it to actually purchase a card. If you are therefore getting 2 soldiers for each card, you're going to make a profit. So the whole point of the Riverfolk Company is make a profit. So that's why you want your hand cards to go to 2, and then your mercenaries are going to be set to 2 as well. Early on in the game, we want to try to take another location, typically on the first turn. And the way that you do that is using the recruit option. And to recruit, you simply take 2 of your soldiers and you spend them. So anything that's spent for the Riverfolk Company comes off the board. Anything that's committed goes to the bottom. So these 2 troops are going to come off. Then we're going to take our recruits and we're going to place them in another clearing with 2 other build locations. And here's a quick summary of your first turn. You're now going to have 3 clearings in which you control with multiple build locations for buildings. This is going to force other factions to have to interact with you and purchase your mercenaries to get what they want. So in order for them to build there, they have to control the clearing. Thus, they're going to have to hire your mercenaries or fight you off. And it's not going to be very likely at the beginning of the game that they want to be fighting you. So instead of fighting, they're going to be hiring your mercenaries so they can get control of the clearing to put their buildings out. So this is a good strategy. So on our first turn, we have 1 soldier remaining, and we're going to commit that fund to draw a card. This is going to bring our hand size up to 4 cards, which are going to allow other players to buy from us. The next thing that I want to teach you about is be open and talk a lot to the other players. Immediately when their turn starts, during their bird song, this is when they can buy services from you. Every single time another player starts a turn, offer your services to them. Say, hey, can I sell you a card? Do you need to use my riverboats to go down the river? Do you need to use my mercenaries this turn? It gets them thinking about the possibilities, and if they don't quite understand how the Riverfolk Company operates, just tell them. Be very open about it, and think of yourself as almost a salesperson. Try to sell your services, but do it every single turn. The more aggressive you are with this, the more profits you're actually going to make, and the more payments that are going to start rolling through the Riverfolk Company, and this is the key to winning. So do not be shy to constantly ask each player what they need. And if they're starting to ask for cards of a certain color, be receptive to that and try to purchase additional cards so you have things to actually sell to them. So one of the most powerful and potent strategies for the Riverfolk Company, be open and talk to the other players. Once you start selling some of your services, you're going to start building up what's called the payments box. And in this case, you now have 4 additional resources. And next turn, what will happen is all of these payments will go to funds. All of your commitments actually move into the middle as well. And now you have 5 different funds to spend. So make sure that you're replenishing your cards, and you can do that by committing one of these soldiers to buy the card. Now remember, you're charging 2 soldiers for 1 card, so you're actually making a profit off this. Something else that you should be mindful of is start to establish trade outposts. Once you can establish a trade outpost with another player, they can buy more of your services each turn. So try to very quickly get a trade outpost in clearings on the map so you can start selling to each player twice. That's going to be your next step. Here's an example of how to establish a trade outpost. You have to spend 2 funds from the clearings ruler. So in this case, we're going to spend 2 funds of the Eries, and we're going to place a matching trade outpost in one of their locations. I'll show you how that works. Now that you've spent 2 of those Erie soldier tokens, you get to place a matching trade outpost in their area. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to place one of the warrior tokens in that area as well. So one thing I want to mention is that although you get 2 victory points for putting the trade outpost down on the table, that's not really what makes the trade outpost amazing. The trade outpost will give you the ability to sell 1 more service per turn to that color. So the Erie dynasties in this area, they can always buy at least 1 of your services, but now they can buy 2. So that allows them to buy maybe your mercenaries. They can also use the riverboat during that turn. They can also buy a card, or they could buy 2 cards, or a combination of what I just said. What makes this excellent is that you're giving them the ability to transfer more and more profits and funds to you, which is fantastic. That's how you're going to get your engine to really grow. So kind of what I recommend is that try to establish 1 trade outpost with every single player in the game. This can be a little bit difficult in a 5 or 6 player game, but it's very, very valuable because you're giving them the opportunity to buy twice from you per turn. That will make your engine really take off, and it will really, really shine, and you'll start making a lot of profits. Here's a perfect example of a mid-game turn that you have been selling to your opponents, and they actually haven't purchased all that much from you, but you can see how fast that this stuff builds up. So in the center, we actually have 8 funds that are available, and at the beginning of your turn in Birdsong, you get 1 victory point for every 2 funds that you have actually in there. So this is a really good way to score points quickly. So in this case, and this doesn't take very long to build this up, you would score 4 victory points on that turn. Now, just be careful and cautious not to get too many soldiers in this box. It gets the other players pretty agitated, and they see that you're getting 4 or 5 points per turn. They're immediately going to try to shut you down. And the way that they shut you down is by wiping out your trade outposts. Every time you lose a trade outpost, you're going to lose half of your funds that are in this box. So if you expand too quickly, let's say you get 12 or 14 funds in this box, yeah, you could be scoring 6 or 7 victory points per turn, which makes you win the game really quickly. But also all of these people that you have been trying to help throughout the game will instantly turn on you, and all of them will attack you and wipe you out. And you're basically going to have to start the game over mid-game. So don't go too crazy, and try to spend some of these funds and give these soldier tokens back to the other players. It kind of lulls them into a false sense of security. They feel like, hey, we're still kind of working together. But really what you're trying to do is you're just trying to not extend so quickly that you gain the wrath of every player at the table. As the game progresses, don't forget to build soldiers intermittently and take additional clearings that have 2 build locations. This will allow you to keep sustaining that need for your services. If the opponents don't really have a need for your services anymore, they'll kind of get bored and quickly tired of you, and they might become aggressive toward you. So always try to keep expanding. Don't get too aggressive. Don't get too crazy. The Riverfolk Company wasn't intended to be this aggressive combat engine. It was meant to be subtle and meant to sell your services. So there's a lot of little intricate tricks that you can do, but keep people wanting to buy your services. If they get bored with you, you're going to lose the game very quickly. They're not going to be spending those soldiers with you, those warriors. They're not going to be giving you those resources that you need to score a lot of points. Something I want to mention really quickly is the Riverfolk Company's crafting ability, which I think is pretty strong in this game. Once you have a lot of funds in this box, you can actually commit those funds to sort of help pay for the cards that you're going to craft. And you're going to be crafting using your trade outposts. So you're going to be scoring points for your trade outposts, and then it gives you additional crafting ability as well, which is fantastic. So just understand that when you're crafting, you're going to be committing these funds actually over here to whatever trade outpost is out. And then these will actually come back into your funds box on the next turn. So think of it as you can use other people's troops for your crafting. So this is something that's a little bit subtle with the Riverfolk Company. They can build a lot of gear really quick. It's a good mid to end game strategy. You could be crafting often. And then to enhance your crafting, you can then take some of these soldiers and use it to buy additional cards, which then you can craft even more. So the ability for this Riverfolk Company to craft is pretty high, and it's a pretty excellent way to gain points. Another thing that you can do with the Riverfolk Company, and I don't think a lot of people do this, and I very, very rarely see a player do this, you can actually discard the crafting card instead of putting it onto the table and then put a warrior into your payments box. So this allows you to accelerate the amount of resources that you have going into your funds box. So if you want to have a really big turn where you start building up a lot of funds in here, you can maybe craft 2 cards to get a couple extra warriors into your payments box. Then on the next turn, all this stuff is going to start piling up in the middle, and you're going to be scoring a lot of points. Another thing I want to mention, specifically with your trade outposts, and this can kind of bring about your downfall, be really cautious when you put a trade outpost into a location with an aggressive enemy like Marquis de Cat or the Underground Duchy, where they have a lot of troops on the table. What you're basically doing is you're giving them a token, and that's a free victory point. So in this case, we have 5 Marquis de Cat soldiers on the table. We only have one of our soldiers, one of the otters, out on the table. So if you put this into play, it kind of makes an easy target. So if you're not really giving Marquis de Cat a lot of some of these services, some of these perks and these benefits, be really skeptical to put a trade outpost in this location. They might just take it out for the victory point. And if you lose one of these trade outposts, you actually lose half of your funds that are on your funds box. So let's say you have 10 funds, and you would lose 5 of those. That's a pretty devastating loss. So be really cautious when you're putting out trade outposts. Don't just put them out to put them out. Make sure that there's a need for it and that you can defend it at least somewhat. So have at least 2 or 3 of your own soldiers there, so you're not just giving points to the other players, and you're not losing your funds. If you lose a lot of your funds, it's almost like starting the game over again. It'll take you 2 or 3 turns to get your engine going again, and that's not what you need. The Riverfolk Company can use the swimming ability to move up and down the riverways with ease, even if you don't rule a clearing. So in this case, we wouldn't be able to move our otters out of this clearing because Marquis de Cat clearly is ruling that clearing. But with the swimmer ability, since it's on a riverway, we can actually move away, and we don't have to worry about owning that clearing. So it gives you an ability to move up and down those riverways with ease. So don't forget that. It doesn't come up a lot during the game, maybe once or twice in the game, but if you remember it, sometimes it gives you the advantage that you need. So to sum it up, run the Riverfolk Company like you would a business. Be a little bit charismatic. Talk to the other players and provide them the services they need to get their engines going. Don't overextend yourself. Don't leave yourself vulnerable to needless attacks. Make sure your trade outposts aren't just being wiped off the board and being destroyed. Something else that you want to focus on is don't get too crazy in the funds box. If other players see you're getting 4, 5, 6, 7 victory points per turn, they're all going to attack you. They're all going to shut you down. They're going to devastate what you've built. and you might not be able to recover until the end of the game. So be very cautious. Make measured moves and decisions to keep your point total fairly close to your opponents, maybe even just 2 or 3 victory points ahead of them. And also, to keep them hungering for more of your services. Keep selling them stuff. Keep selling them stuff. Keep getting out there and talking to all the players every single turn saying, what can I do for you? How can I help you? If they see you as an ally, as a trading partner, they're going to be less likely to obliterate you. So one of the secrets to the Riverfolk Company is keep your relations with the other players. Talk to them. That's all you have to do. And you can really increase your victory point totals significantly. I want to thank you today for joining me and learning about the Riverfolk Company. Hopefully you've learned some excellent tips and tricks so you can increase your victory point total in your next game of Root. Thanks again for watching, and as always, have fun gaming.